is a story about Sultan. He's a young boy living on the quarantine, a place called Union. He grew with the grandmother. Sultan just get the milk straight from the cow breast, raw. When Sultan have a cook, he's cooked with the plantain skin and with whey broth and boiled down with coconut milk. So Sultan be really strong. Hey Sultan, buy you nice boy. Hey Sultan, buy them guys over here, joke out the feel sweet boy. When Sultan break, she drives, he gets fire. When Sultan break, she drives, he gets fire. When Sultan break, she drives, he gets fire. When Sultan break,
yo, GTRhythm.com.
When Sultan break, she drives, he gets fire. When Sultan break, she drives, he gets fire. When the break, he break, she drives, he gets fire. When the bite it break, she drives, he gets fire. When Sultan break, she drives, he gets fire. When the break, he break, she drives, he gets fire. When the bite it break, she drives, he gets fire. When the break, he break, she drives, he gets fire. Hey Sultan, buy you nice boy. Hey Sultan, buy you sweet boy. Hey Sultan, buy them girls so you choke out the feel like they in heaven boy. When Sultan break, he gets fire. When Sultan break, he gets fire. When Sultan break, I love a watcher. When Sultan break, I love a watcher. never take nobody man. What's God for she big as the man was the folks like a man. What's God for she big as the man. She big as the country never take nobody man. What's God for she big as the man. Because the country never take nobody man. You tell her you what you can do. From shop, you know what you can do. Oh, bartender, Suki, bartender. Oh, bartender, Suki, bartender. You tell her do what you can do. Steamboat coming in, what you can do. Oh, bartender, Suki, bartender. You tell her do what you can do. From shop, what you can do. Oh, bartender, Suki, bartender. You tell her do what you can do. Tell me why you correct what you can do. Oh, bartender, Suki, bartender. You tell her do what you can do. Oh, black and correct what you can do. Oh, bartender, Suki, bartender. Oh, bartender, Suki, bartender. You tell her do what you can do. Rock up and shut up, but what you can do. Oh, bartender, Suki, bartender. Oh, bartender, Suki, bartender. You tell her do what you can do. Run the shop and shut up, but what you can do. Oh, bartender, Suki, bartender. You tell her do what you can do. See what I come and what you can do. Oh, bartender, Suki, bartender. I tell her do what you can do. Run the shop and shut up, but what you can do. Hey, Captain, where the boat goes? I want to do some poker. Take me in the bush today. Her goal is the thing that keep me.
Yo, GTRhythm.com.
Take me in the bush today. Her goal is the thing
Yo,
that
DJ Metatone.
one man in the captain way. Captain wakey wake the boat on wake the bowman. Bowman wake with the paddle in the hand. All I want is a long and strong. Long and strong is too much to me. Long and strong is done that me. Captain, put me on shore. I don't want to go anymore. It's on the big gun, jump with me. It's on the big gun, walk with me. It's on the big gun, fight with me. It's on the big gun, too much to me. Captain, put me on shore. I don't want to go anymore. It's on the big gun, fight with me. It's on the big gun, too much to me. It's on the big gun, jump with me. It's on the big gun, walk with me. Captain, put me on shore. I don't want to go anymore. It's on the big gun, fight with me. It's on the big gun, it's on the big gun, jump with me. It's on the big gun, walk with me. It's on the big, it's on the big, it's on the big, it's on the big. It's on the big, it's on the big. It's on the big, it's on the big. It's on the big, it's on the big.
Anami Sesson. Mama. A very good evening to you, our own Yoruba singers there, giving us some kwekwe music, kakale. Those of you from the countryside, No, we say Kakali. Kwekwe. One of the African rituals that is unique to Guyana. You know, the village movement is unique to Guyana. They were similar movements, but not in the same magnitude. And Kwekwe, in the African diaspora, survived in Guyana. You know, in Africa, they would have these things going on for a whole month. They would start the rite of passage, you know, to initiate people into marriage. And when our foreparents came across the Middle Passage, they brought it with them, and they used to get it for 4 weeks. Then it got down to a week. Nowadays, it's a night. But it's one of the rituals that stayed with Guyana. You don't have it any other part of the African diaspora. And as you know, the Africans, the name they call it in West Africa is Kakale. You go Kakale by you gotta go West Bobis and Buxton and those places to hear Kakale. Eventually turn Kwekwe. Music that prepares people for marriage, or prepare them for marriage. And you know, when Sultan break, the Drazi catch fire. I won't get in trouble because they go say, Dr. Hines, Lalis, look how we going on the program and so on. But you know, Kwekwe music is about sex and family. Sex and family, rite of passage, you know. I remember we gone at Kwekwe, you know, Kwayana upstanding, man, you know, cuss and so on. But you used to take pride when we singing at Kwekwe. You can get for cuss in front of Kwayana, but you know, they still do Kwekwe in the countryside. They still do it. It's people saying, "Oh God, them young people, they don't get time with them kind of music. They don't get time with Kwekwe." Well, it's not true. It's simply not true. You know, they may add to the lyrics. You know, they may add to the lyrics. You know, and their own language. Their own language, you know. We long time when you know it said, long time you hear they say the thing high like a bundari. My generation say the thing high like a wedding cake. Them young people now gonna use their own images, you know. But there's a way in which this society is trying to turn Africans away from their culture, and try to tell us how they lost their culture and all kind of story. You know, it's part of the master plan for domination. Dr. Henry Jeffrey is here, and you know, he has been beating that domination drum for a long time when some of us weren't paying attention. You know, when you want to dominate people, you break their culture. When the enslaved people were brought across the Middle Passage, those coming to the English, what was then, what we now know as the English-speaking Caribbean, they would stop them in Barbados, which is the most easterly of our islands. And the French used to stop theirs in Martinique. And they would engage in what they call seasoning. That is to turn the African from a human being into a slave. And, you know, one of the first things they do is to take away the name. You know, take away the language, take away the religion. So the cultural thing is pivotal in this transformation, as they called it then, from the human being to the slave. So somebody say no sound. somebody's saying no sound. I hope that is not true. You all tell me whether you all are getting sound. Right. So the cultural thing, you see all the celebration of Africans not voting for the APNU and shifting their vote. And they sit there and don't talk that Indians, by and large, did not shift their votes. Here they are celebrating African people shifting their votes and going on about African perfect song. African people, African Guyanese rejecting their leaders and all of that stuff, It's part of the domination thing and making heavy weather of the fact that some voters, some African Guyanese moved and voted for Win, some stayed home. And you hear all this news about those who did not vote for APNU, but none of the media, none of the analysts, that 77,000 people voted for APNU. 77,000 people voted for Norton. They've silenced 77. All they're interested in is those who voted for Win, and to some extent those who voted for those who stayed home. And they've silenced 77,000, mostly Africans, who voted for APNU and Norton. You all don't take it lightly, These people are serious. In order to deal with their domination, in order to advance their domination, and in order to say that the PNC dead and black leaders dead, they have to silence 77,000 people. You open the newspapers. They're not interested in 77,000 people. Don't talk about them. They talk about 12 seats. And they want to tell the APNU who those 12 seats must go to. They vote for the APNU, but they silence 77,000 people because those 77,000 people upset the narrative. The narrative is that black people done with their leaders, they're done with PNC. Bye-bye. And they've silenced 77,000. I'll have more to say about that. A good evening to all of you where you're joining us from. Dr. Jeffries here, and you all have been calling for him to come and give his perspective. He had a lot to say before the election, and clearly he has had time, as most of us have had, about 4 weeks to try to figure out. Some people, after 4 days, they came to conclusions, put up, done. Serious people take time to sift through this stuff that is happening here. But you all bear that in mind. What they've done is silence 77,000 people in order to advance their narratives. I guess most of you would have seen that interview that I did with the two young people. I played the second part here last Friday. And I understand they have about 75,000 views. 75,000 people have viewed that that interview. 77,000 people vote for us. 75,000 viewed part one, and I think about 40-something thousand viewed part two. And lots of discussion, especially from young people. Young people have been getting in touch with me and say for the first time, they got a chance to understand what the meaning of race is, what the history of race is. And as I said, they have asked me to do some courses, and our first course on Pan-Africanism, our first course, Introduction to Pan-Africanism, would commence on I think we have set it for October 18. So it's another 2 weeks or 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks. I'm going to give you all the number where you can call to enroll for that course. Already a number of you have gotten in touch with me wanting to be part of the course. So coming out of that interview, all the racist thing that they talk about and so on, young people as a result of that interview, and saying we want to learn more about this thing called race. We want to learn more about African history, and it's part of the work, right? Part of the work. So please, we are doing the work, as they say, young people under consciousness, young Black people. Well, they are reaching out. They are reaching out. I shared with you some of the comments that I got. Young people got in touch with me personally, and they're asking questions, and they're alarmed that some of the things I talked about in that interview, they didn't hear it before. So we are making some strides in that direction. The work has to go on, but we have to continue to do our political work, our cultural work, and move Guyana to a point where we can see that none of our ethnic groups, none of them is in a situation where they are marginalized. All right, I think enough of you are here. Please share the link. Please share the link. Let them know that Dr. Jeffrey is on tonight. Please share the link. That interview, the interview that I did with the two young people, like I said, it has gone viral. They tell me that over 75,000 people have viewed it. Those of you who have not viewed the interview can go back and view it, you know, because it nails the lie that people are not listening. Beautiful column by a young lady, Janelle Prasad, who obviously is East Indian. And she wrote a column in Kaito News on the weekend, and that also is gaining a lot of traction on social media, because it comes from an Indian woman, and a young Indian woman too. And it's sending some of the Indian supremacists crazy. How dare a young woman take David Hines seriously? All right, I think we are ready for Dr. Jeffrey. That's Dr. Henry Jeffrey. Good evening, my brother.
Good evening, David, and good evening to your audience also.
You know, Dr. Jeffrey, tonight we want to start to dig into the outcome of the 2025 election. And I say start because there's a lot of stuff there, as the young academics say, a lot of stuff to unpack. So we're not going to get it all done in one night. But I want to take you back. I want to take you back to an address you gave when you mounted the APNU stage as a guest speaker at Plaisance. And you made a presentation that stirred some debate before the election. Not enough, because people were concentrating on the election itself, and so might not have paid as much attention as they should have paid to what you said. And basically, I think you said that African Guyanese should not be afraid to vote race, which some in the establishment, the media establishment, and others found shocking. Some of them covered it, but they found shocking. Talk to us about what drove you to make that argument on a platform of one of the contesting parties.
David, I've written about that before. I said voting for your ethnic group, as the PPP the Indians do, you have just said it. They vote strongly for the PPP. It's their ethnic group. It's not a crime. The United Nations says that you have a right to have your own associations. There is no problem with voting for your ethnic group, well, particularly in the context where other people are doing just that. Now, what I have not been doing anything much, as you said, for the last couple of weeks, and there will be another 2 weeks or so, largely because I believe that for 2 decades, the PPP has been punishing Black people. They have been doing every single thing in this country to force Black people to vote for them. They were told that if we have to live together, the British told them that since the 50s. The Carter said so. When Biden came, he told them, he said, we will need to have a more inclusive arrangement for governance.
You mean Carter?
No, even the Biden government.
Oh, the Biden government, yes. All right, you're talking about the Biden.
Yeah.
Right,
Carter
yes.
said that. And then when they refused, he went away. You remember, for a long time. And then Biden come and he said the same thing. That you have to have a more inclusive constitutional arrangement then for governance of a multi-ethnic society. It doesn't matter if people want to vote race. They have a right to if they want to. The Indians do it all the time. Janet Jagan has never been on a stage without a political stage without telling the Indians, don't split the vote. Never been. Every election she's there, don't split the votes. The truth of the matter, I understand our context. Our context was that, remember, there was Burnham in government, and essentially the PPP had no other way of holding the people together, because the Indians are not essentially socialist in that kind of a way. And therefore she had to say that. She'd been saying it all the time. So you don't have to, you can vote who you want to, but you got to look at the struggle you are in. And I'm saying Africans that struggle against an Indian ethnic party that essentially are suppressing them at every single level. Every single level. Look, but let me go on before I divert too much. And as a result of which, they must learn also not to split their votes. You know, there's an Indian lady that comes on the program. You know, she says, "All you vote away from your own people, but we loyal." Yeah. It's this nice looking girl. She comes and says, "We loyal, we always voting." How you think that loyalty was built? How you think it was built? Because they imbued in the Indian population, Burnham is wicked, and Burnham, and by association, most of the Black people in them are wicked. So they are loyal to the PPP. So I have no problem with people voting for the race. There is absolutely nothing wrong with you voting for your race. Nothing whatsoever. But once people are, or for the region you want to live in, or anything else. But once we understand that, you have to have constitutional arrangement to put that in place, to see that everyone has a fair share. Look at Suriname. The Juka and them voting for the race all the time. They're voting for the race. But in Suriname, if anyone wants to be a president, he has to get what? 66% of the population. It's not anybody can force you not to, or to vote or not to vote for your race. That's fine. But even in the American Constitution, when they had all those problems with the states, what they had to do, they had to give each state two Senate seats. The smallest state got 2 Senate seats. When you got a place like California with umpteen million voters got 2 Senate seats, you have to take those things into consideration. So it's just nonsense. It's just more propaganda and stupidity and total ignorance to tell people they can't vote for the race if they want to. If you want to vote for your race, vote for your race, particularly when you are in a contestation with those who are doing so. It is nonsensical. And that's why perhaps I don't like traveling, so I've not been on any travel. But recently I took a couple of days off and went abroad. Because what I was pleased about this election, the PPP spent 20 years. They destroyed the Linden Pension Fund. They put the only all-weather track in Lenora. Who puts that all-weather athletic track in Lenora? Please. They suspend collective bargaining so that they can do what they like with public servants' wages, and they suppressed it. They have done everything in the last one to impoverish black people. And you know why? They did it essentially to force you to vote for them. And the last election, they failed miserably. And when I saw the result from Linden, I said, look at this. All this crap they did, and they only get, you were going to get a red wave in England, you remember?
Yes.
PPP only get 1,000 votes more. One. With all of what they've done, they've destroyed the People Pension Fund, they've done all that. And if it's one place you can go to say there's a domination of Africans there, right? So you can make that more or less thing. You are Amerindian and so on. PPP had 1,000 votes more. That's why when I saw that they put on the thing that they got 9,000 votes in Linden, I said, how can I have made that mistake? But, Jacob says it was an error, but they wanted to be left there. Because if you had just go there as a cursory onlooker, you'd have said, they did well in Linden. But it's 1,000. They get 3,000 last year. They get 4,000. And that's why Shama Solomon says, we're not concerned. You remember he said it today in the press?
Yes.
That PPP and do nothing in Linden to make us too worried about the PPP and so on. But that's where Linden is one of the most kind of, what I would say not revolutionary, but they wouldn't take crap even from the PNC. But they did not vote for the PPP because they understood quite clearly. And if you come down to Region 4 and places like that and do a simple, like per capita thing of how many votes the PPP get from Africans, you'll find they didn't get much. We ain't got it. But that's another story altogether. There's another story. And then I said, I can take leave now. I can go and sit down because black people did not fall for the pressure that the PPP, they have impoverished them. They have do all kind of things to them, and they did not fall for it. And I said, I can go to leave now. We're going to come back and talk about dominance. And but the importance of this for the PPP, they're lucky. The global situation have changed somewhat because all of this they've done to demonstrate that if they do X, if they do Y, they can get Africans to vote for them. It's something like what's happening in Israel. It's something precisely like what's happening in Israel, but at a lesser level. The Israelis have a right to a place of their own, but so too are the Palestinians. And a two-state solution seemed that like the only answer to this. But the Jews are saying, we don't want no two-state solution. What do they want? They want to dominate the Palestinians forever. Because if any one-state solution would have to give Israel some kind of oversee of the Palestinian situation, or they wouldn't be satisfied. And that is an important issue. So I am saying to you, it's the same thing. So I said, I can go and leave now, because the PPP, with all they have done, has not been able to suppress the African people. They did not vote for them. I think I said that in my last article. I understand the win thing too, because I think it's not ordinary what people are saying. Remember in my last article, I wrote a man on the 22nd of July or of August, 21st. I said, why is the Village Voice supporting Win?
Yeah.
I mean, why is the Village Voice supporting Win? Of course, Village Voice does right for refuse to publish the article. I don't care that nobody pays me for these things. I mean, Starbucks used to pay me, but they come abroad. But people don't just do what they like to be like. So I asked that question, why are they? And 3 days after, or if so long, a whole, even your person that was in your party that said she formed her own party, gone over to Win. What you are seeing on the ground is a whisper campaign by the PNC against Norton. I wrote the man that. I said, listen, why are the PPP, it is that the Village Voice supporting? Village Voice supposed to like have a overarching things for black thing, because the other newspapers are not good at it. And therefore, how come they are supporting them? How? And then suddenly they published, Skycho News carried it, but they didn't carry it. So effectively, what they found, the old guards in the PNC, the old guards were still anti-Norton and supporting the thing, because they control the people anyways. So effectively, they were against Norton, and that is why Mohammed got all them votes on the ground. It's a whisper campaign. The PPP know about whisper campaign. There's no whisper campaign against your own people. So effectively, it's a whisper campaign. That is what give Mohammed the vote. It's not simply black people go home. They didn't vote for the people, but the PNC character with the old guard character whisper campaign against Norton. And that's what the man said. He said, man, you know what they're doing. When you're asking me, I said, ask somebody who I think no. Just to back up my position. So when all those votes you see win and all this other thing, the day the PPP&C come back, those win and getting those votes. The problem, that's not even suggestive of any change in the system, because that is what the PNC guys good, and they're good at it. So that's not even suggestive of any particular change in the system. And in politics, to even start talking about change in the system, it got to happen about 3 elections.
Yes.
Yeah. So when they say it happened, particularly in the context of which it's happened, is nothing happened. Essentially, look, about 3 elections has already gone and the WPA gone through the window. But what I am saying to you, essentially, that is it. And so I said to myself, I'm gonna go and have something, because at least I know black people did not fall for voting for the PPP with all it has done. And let me tell you something else. You see, things work out. The old guard step in. Mohammed got money. They step in. Now your person was there. Now it's not she not prime ministerial candidate. The old guard set in and took back all the votes that North might not have got from the PPP that might have even been thinking about voting into the PPP. So when you sit down, you know something, but these are the thoughts you got to put into. People got to sit down and do your own analysis of the situation and see. So it is not winning, got all those votes, but that's almost impossible. Go and find countries that are happening. It don't happen like that. It's the PNC start whispering a card in the anti-Norton vibes throughout the country, and that is what's happened. The PPP got some Amerindian vote. The actual voting population could be anything more than 5,200 vote or something like that. But of 515,000 votes, let me put it like that. And that is about it. What the PPP got must be 47% of that. Essentially, the 40% of Indians that vote strongly for them and some Amerindians. Of course, I'm not saying no Indian vote for the PNC. I'm not saying no Indian vote for, no blacks vote for the PPP. They have been thinking them so much that some of them will do. But the point is they make no inroad into the black vote in any substantial way to say that the Constitution need not be changed because they are a multiracial country in a sensible way.
In a sensible way, Dr. Henry Jeffrey.
They can't do it.
Dr. Henry Jeffrey, a mouthful here tonight and bringing new perspective on these issues. I hope that we are paying attention to what he is saying. Former President Donald Ramotar said on a program last week, he said the PPP beat Bush and win catch the board. The PPP beat Bush in Black people community and win catch the board, the whole African saying that you beat Bush for other people. And I think he's largely accurate.
Yes, but he's accurate. That's just what I said.
Yes.
The PPP been doing all these things to black people. He ain't going to mean to say that. Over 20 years, they impoverished black people. They check closed down. The vocational education thing in all your villages. All those things the PPP do to black people. And that is why, David, you're in Parliament. No, I know there's a waste of time placed under the present Constitution, but you got the opportunity. There's a whole lot of things that most. You got to stand up for collective bargaining. You got to stand up for things like an ethnic disparity study to see what really went on. These are important issues. And of course, I'm talking about constitutional reform. I put those secondary to constitutional reform. That should be maybe the most important thing to do. And I'm going to tell you something else about Norton. You see, people are beating up on Norton. But the people who are doing so got a very, they don't even understand the political process. Norton won an election. Now, they set it up. He won an election and leader. They are talking about this, and he don't think, I have never been, I've been in politics all these years, and I hear all these things about every leader I have known. Or what we don't communicate. Oh, I heard about Jack Joe more than anybody else. I don't communicate and all. Every leader I've known, maybe a little bit less for Chelly Jagan himself. Even Burnham, Burnham get rid of those who you can't think, Ralph Farley and all of that. I mean, we know that. So effectively, I bore that. But democracy cannot exist in a country, and this is an autocratic country. That election don't mean nothing. I read the preliminary reports of all the observers, and not one of them said that makes Guyana a democratic country. Not one. Not one. They say, the elections were more or less, well, not more or less that. It went off well, no violence. What they see, it was fair, who vote, and that's what they mean by voting. But every one of them knew, and they said it, that elections are rigged long before election day. Long before election day. You went to election without a census, and well, you remember we started, so you don't even know how many voters you got. You apparently, a decent analysis that was in Stabrook News said that you gotta get that at best the voting population gonna be about 520,000 people. You got 188 or 48%, and nobody want to do anything about it. Nobody. So election and election dates. I have not heard from one of the reporters that said this government is a democratic government. What they said, the thing was free and well, open, free and fair on the day. But every one of them went back to say that is not that. They had a whole lot of advantages coming down and take. Well, those are the advantages. Give you election day. Nobody don't try to rig election day unless they get into a real scrape long before. They don't want to do biometric. And the list is 48% bloated.
48%. 48%. Dr.
So so when you sit down and say, I said, don't worry, that's the PPP and their confusion. They're going to do what they have to do. But that they are internationally recognized as a dictatorship, as they used to be under Granger when coming up. They used to say they are electoral autocracy. The last out of them say they are just an autocracy.
Dr. Henry Jeffrey here.
No, they used to say they're electoral democracy.
Yes.
The last one come and say they're electoral autocracy. Well, they ain't gonna move from there from this last thing. But let me tell you something. Let me make a point here because about Norton and what's happening. They are talking about Norton resign, Norton. Why should Norton resign? You have a mechanism to get rid of Norton, isn't it? You got a party election to get Norton. This is not the PPP. You ain't got no real power there. That is the democratic centralist stupidness that they got. You can't really get. You can call primaries. You can call primaries, and you have a democratic way of getting rid of Norton. If Norton is all this bad that you are saying, and I've heard what you're saying about Norton to almost every leader I've known, why you can get some people together, call an impromptu or whatsoever Congress and get rid of Norton. You have that. You don't show me one country. Or let me go back. I have written and said PNC is the most democratic political party in Guyana. Because you gotta leave the PPF. There is not any democracy. There is a communist nonsense. But the PNC is the most democratic party. Well, if Norton is all this bad and so on, you mean only you in the leadership know this? You can't get a Congress or something and vote Norton now? What do we have here? And there is no country that is a democracy, a stable democracy, that you have any democratic thing. All of them have to have internal elections. All of them have to have elections, democratic elections within the party. You can't talk about democracy in the country and don't want democracy in the party. You can't let a man go and win the election, go and tell you, oh, well, let me make a deal. Let me make a deal. Look what gonna happen. Why this man moved? electable than you. Well, bring you up now. Let you come and challenge me. I mean, and that is why Norton and Campbell got a big job ahead. They must make sure that the governance of the PNC just don't go back to an oligarchy. They must ensure and entrench elections and democracy in the PNC. Not sitting down there. I hope he understands that is why he's going. I know how he got there, because remember when he was the organizer of Carl Greenwich.
Right.
And remember when everybody said Carl Greenwich with the table turnover, and suddenly Recog said Carl Greenwich lose?
Yes.
I was then at Cool Square. I said, how can that table turnover Carl Greenwich lose? Well, no, that is some jiggery-poogery happened there. Because those who are at the top of this thing, they mouth a lot about democracy, but they really don't want it. They mouth it. And so Norton has a right to stay where he is. He has a right. Let them, if he's so bad, let them come struggling with him in a democratic struggle and remove him. He has a right to stay there, but they don't want that. So effectively, much of the things you read about in the press, you say, half of the people they're not too clear what it
yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, Henry, because and I want to follow up on your comments on Norton. What is the, from your standpoint, what's the underlying thing behind this anti-Norton thing? I mean, Norton is like any regular person you can approach. Let me take a drink by, let me gaff. Yeah. So he's like any one of us. But what is the underlying socio political motivation behind this thing that people went to the point of ensuring that the APNU lost an election?
I think I have been, but I have been told that he being bad after the Carl Greenwich thing. That all sort of thing got involved with like gun and all sort. I don't know. But I am telling you, whatsoever he was, after all, he was the manager for the show, You Throw a Table Turnover on the vote stage. So he got, and I think it is that. I think that is part of it, maybe the major part of what occurred, but it does not matter. He's there. You want to move him, go do it democratically. You bring in all sorts of people from all sorts of places to say they can replace him. Let them come. Ask for emergency meeting of the Congress. Do whatever you have to do and remove him democratically. There is no country that has a stable democracy that don't have democracy in the party system. None. And therefore, maybe I'm missing some, but you got to tell me who got a democracy that don't have a stable system in the party, and that no old guy supposed to come and determine after election that, oh, you not suitable. He might not be suitable, vote him out. Go.
Right. The Terence Campbell, as you mentioned a couple of minutes ago, has been appointed to head the parliamentary delegation. And the 12 parliamentarians have been under the gaze, the scrutiny of the media, the elites. They have paid little attention to PPP to the point we don't even know who represents the PPP in Parliament and when. If you ask the average observer who in there for winning the 16, they'll probably call 4 or 5. But they can tell you the 12 that is representing the APN. You talk to us why the scrutiny is on the 12. And secondly, whether the APNU the parliamentarians can afford to treat their work as simply the traditional parliamentary thing. You go to parliament, you make your speech, and so on, and that's it. So it's a two-part question. Why the scrutiny on the APNU? And secondly, whether the APNU needs to treat the parliament not in a traditional way, but as a political platform that goes beyond parliament.
First of all, let me say parliament is a political platform. That is what you do there, particularly a British type partner like us. It gives you all sort of access to press and things when you say it, and it is a political platform. Why they are treating things like that? Because they are into, essentially, for the first thing, it's a legitimate thing, because it's you seem to have lost your position as the opposition. So they will treat you like that. But they know too that this wasn't no real anything happened. They know that the PNC can get back tomorrow. They know it, and they know it will happen. They know it will happen. This Mohammed thing is a fly-by night. And they know that it will happen. So they will have people, people like Sharma, Solomon, people like yourself must come to realize too that having win there give you opportunity to make the parliament more radical. They can't say the PNC alone. And then we're going to see where wind's coming from. Then. Because you can make the parliament rule radical. When you get up and say, for instance, you got to get it through before. It's not like get up and say. But the point is, when you got to say, we want collective bargaining for the public, for all workers, but particularly for public service workers, what would then say? And we must have a struggle for it. It is not just saying so. We want IPADD to be recognized, and rightly so. What are going to say? We want an ethnic disparity analysis, as they have already been placed on the table, to see what disparity exists in this country. Not so much how it come there. I know it come there. The PPP do it. But the point is, it's to see how we can change the dynamics of all this. Let me see where wind goes down, stand on all these things. And therefore, you have a better dynamic. You have a better chance now to radicalize the parliament, because it's not PNC alone there. They can't just point to black people alone being there. You can revolutionize you can radicalize the parliament, and then we will see where win really coming from.
Is Terence Campbell a good choice, given the kind of work that needs to be done as the APNU moves forward?
I will say that he's one of the best choices you had. I will say that, because he's a bit neutral. He's dynamic kind of person too, and he's committed to the PNC's platform. You remember what happened? He was in Annog, you know.
Yes, I remember he was in Annog with you all. Yes.
Good. So I know him some, and therefore, and he has the understanding of he got what I would call a relatively deep understanding, not so much of the political process, but half of the political process is about managerial things. Mm-hmm. And no, if without anything, if they had said there was going to be a choice like that, which I said should be democratic, but I would have said Terence is the best person.
Terence Campbell here, getting the nod from Dr. Henry Jeffrey. Our first interview since the election, 4 weeks have passed, and I thought that as a student of politics and an observer, someone like Dr. Jeffrey would take some time and digest what has happened, and I was not wrong. As he said, he took a vacation, and here he is bringing his own unique analysis to what has happened. Dr. Jeffrey, we talked extensively before the election about the AFC and its gamble in trying to get the presidential candidacy and the other things that come with that. And you were critical of the tactical moves that they made. Are you surprised that they did so poorly relative to how they did? You mentioned earlier that after 2 or 3 elections, they're gone. You said WPA, but I know you meant AFC.
Yes.
So are you surprised that
Not really.
they did so poorly? And secondly, that the Nigel Hughes appeal, which was there, I would say about a year ago, really didn't make a difference.
But Nigel, you know, one of the funny things in this world, you know, I am sometimes surprised. Nigel has a good understanding of what what needs to be done. You see how he wrote it even when he wasn't leader.
Yeah.
And how he gets himself into these things. You see, you know why the WPA going to stay about a long, long time? The WPA has got a moral standing in this country. You know, these people just disappear. Nigel should have said, watch. We going back now, Aubrey. We going back here. If you think he's all these things, we going to sit on and back. Don't get yourself caught up in the old guard story about they don't like Aubrey. No, this is what should happen. That's what Terence more or less did. He says, I stay in here. You have principles. But then you see, the WPA, how the WPA was formed. The WPA was formed by Trotman and Kemraj.
You mean the AFC? The AFC.
Yes. Yeah. Claiming and not resigning.
Yeah.
They should have resigned. Nobody voted for Trotman and Kemraj. They should have said, well, we go farm your party, we go away. Not a soul voted for. They vote for political parties in Guyana. And when you start with that downward trend in political, at the time I said it's not good. If you and your people told WPA when she left,
Sheila older.
Sheila older, but Shrabo.
You're talking about Sarabo.
Yeah, she got a farm show party and this and that. When it's your party that representative, nobody vote for this one. And this thing is continued. And it has continued until we end up in Ashaki soon who taking. It's like when they say that politics is a dirty game, they think it means it should be dirty. They're not seeing as a critique of those who are in politics. When somebody says politics is a dirty game, it don't mean you must operate dirty. But they seem to believe that's what it means. What it means is a critique of politicians and saying that they should operate good. But they're not what these people believe that you must operate in any old way, any immoral way. Indeed, that's why they're gonna vote for Mohammed. Mohammed's under serious all sort of consideration. I got nothing against people as such, but yeah, it don't mean nothing. So I mean, the very people who running around talking about the girl being killed in the swimming pool and all the same thing, they're gonna vote for Mohammed. I mean, it's just amazing thing. So, politics a dirty game is a critique of the existing politicians, meaning they should behave better. It don't mean you must behave like them.
Yeah. Dr. Henry Jeffrey here tonight. Dr. Jeffrey, once the election was finished and Mohammed is slated to become officially the leader of the opposition, the question of GCOM arose, and the argument from him and some others that he should get an opportunity to name the three GCOM commissioners from the quote-unquote opposition side. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree. Yeah, you cannot, I mean, you see, you can make a fetish of rules. What's it? You are saying the law says that these people are there forever, but laws can't make them sort of a thing in terms of a democratic country. That's why let it go to court. But I think that the right thing would be would be to give him the opportunity as leader of the opposition to choose some people. That is it. That is what he is. It is not, I'm not against anybody, but he's now come as leader of the opposition. Give him. I got all sort of questionable thing about Mohammed, but that is that he has become, he had a right to run. He ran. Yes, I think he should have the opportunity to choose whosoever he can choose, you'll have to go. You might end up in court on it because, if he has the opportunity to choose who is there, he must have the opportunity to choose who is chairman.
Who's chairman? Right. That's where I was going to ask you next.
Yes. I mean, if you want to give him the right to choose and get new people, he must have a right to choose who is chairman too.
Yes.
But yes. I agree. I can't see how he's going to come now as thing, and people are going to say, "Oh, I was there since God McMahon," and things like that. No, but he was given. Well, he will have to be given. You can't give him one and don't give him the opportunity to be the chairman also. So it's good you go to court, because the minute the court says he can change the others, the court will have to say he has a right to a position on the chairman.
And he will have to do so in consultation with the PNC anyway. Yes. Right. He will have to do so in consultation. So Dr. Henry Jeffrey here tonight, we're talking about the election, and we are now 4 weeks out of the election, giving us enough time to really digest somewhat what happened. Usually when these things happen, especially when you have something that is not normal happens, you want to try to get behind all the noise. And as Dr. Jeffrey has said here tonight, there's been no change in ethnic voting patterns. The PPP Indians voting. Dr. Jeffrey, why the Indian youth did not swarm to the Mohammed phenomenon? Especially when you took into consideration that a few months ago when he came on the road, he seemed to, at that time, to have attracted some large crowds in the Indian community. Talk to us why Indian people, and especially the Indian youth, did not go to him in the same way as Africans did.
Because they got enough sense to see that a vote for Mohammed might well end up a vote for the PNC.
Mm-hmm.
That is what they've been brought up to understand must not happen. And of course, your little term in office in 2015 to 2020 didn't help that much. So effectively, that was the thing. Why? I mean, I couldn't see if the PPP in power and I'm an Indian person, why not vote for the PPP? the PPP suppressing black people, not suppressing them. And there are always some Indians going to vote because they got a higher moral, they got different notions of right and wrong and all of that. And for the most part, they're going to be middle class Indians that can afford that kind of thing. But no, I am not surprised that they vote like on block for the PPP. And that's why at that little meeting, I went to tell black people, don't split the votes. I know by then it was a last call, but you got to tell them, don't split, because the other side not splitting any votes.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
And even then, I said the black people must be the most liberal people in the whole universe. It's a fact. Don't matter where you go, you got black people voting for other people and black people, as John Rex said, black people are not superiority racist, they're defensively racist. They are defensive. If you come against them, they're coming against you. But they don't sit down and say, I'm better than you, and therefore I have to get anything more than you and all that, and you can't do this. No. Black people are not that. Professor John Rex himself. I think I said that in the meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you did sociology and thing too, so you must run into Rex. But so it's black people are not racist in the terms of think they're superior. Lots of them think they can do a lot of more superior things than people, but they don't think that is a reason. Indeed, if it's so superior, why you are being racist against people?
That's right. That's right.
I mean, it don't make no sense. Some people are not racist. They think they are superior with people. I began by saying, look, black people run all over the world and have an athletic medal. In Guyana, they take the athletic state and put it to Lenora.
Lenora, yeah.
I mean, come on. You need no more proof of a sense of suppression and there are many other things.
Jeffrey, talk to us. I mean, if you've laid out an analysis of what happened, and I think a lot of us who have been paying keen attention would have to agree with your observations. But is there something that the APNU could have done differently to have at least altered the migration of some of those votes?
Some of those votes, the APNU, who's the APNU? The old guard or the new guard? It's two APNU you end up.
There you go. All right.
Good. The old guards could have done what they should have done in the first place. They don't like Norton, mobilize their forces and vote him out. Good. If you can't vote him out, sit down. When election time comes, sit down and let mobilize about him, around him, and try to make the best of the election. After that, we go vote him out. That's what you need to do. If he's as bad as they say, you will get rid of him. But you can't do it the way they are trying to do it. Mm-hmm. Democracy, says Norton. And you are bringing, I said, no, all right, democracy, you say, yeah. But we sit down in our wisdom and we don't think you are electable. And so we put a man that's more electable. You put some people are electable and get votes at all.
Dr. Henry Jeffrey here tonight. We've been going for the last hour and a quarter. And we still have a lot. We still have a lot to unpack on these elections. We're looking at the numbers. And last week I did make that point that the PPP didn't win this election in the way that they're trying to make it. Dr. Jeffrey.
They know that too.
Here tonight. And we are going to continue. Obviously, it upset people over the other side because they have this narrative that the PPP won this election and should be congratulated and so forth. When you hear the kind of money that they spend, Dr. Jeffrey, take for example, I think it was the not the Carter Center, the Commonwealth said that 92% of the coverage on NCN went to PPP. 92% of the political electoral coverage on the NCN, 92%, and this is not me. This is the Carter Center said. I mean, that's stunning.
It's quite clear. But David, the PPP had no intention of running free and fair election. They know that what they were doing would make the elections not free and fair, because free and fair election not demonstrated on the day of voting. So even if I hold a gun to your head far apart and tell you vote for me, and all of us go and vote for you, there is free and fair election. The affair is not done on the day. It is done with all those things you talk about there. You use not only that, you're bribing people, you got people harassment at work to wear red jersey. I wrote on that. A young lady, a relative come and be sitting down drinking, and he looked bad. I said, "What happened to you, man?" He tell me the story. He said, "Man, my niece come home crying." I said, "Why?" He said she was told she got put on red jersey and go by the
PPP. Yeah. Dr. Henry Jeffrey, thank you very much, my brother, for coming.
And thank you very much,
in
David.
a couple of weeks when we continue this conversation. Your last column there on Burnham's foreign policy I found very instructive, and I want us to open up that discourse a little bit more, because we are finding out that a lot of our young people, I don't know whether it's a social media thing or what, but a lot of young people, I gave an interview with 2 young people last week, and as I said in the opening, it really went viral and 70-something thousand views. And a lot of young people got in touch with me personally and really express almost disgust that the gap in the knowledge, the popular knowledge base is there, that they simply didn't understand the definition of racism and definition of race, and that we take it for granted. And they urge me to do some teaching in a more structured way, which has led me to start the course in the next coming weeks. But it's amazing the knowledge base, the gap in the knowledge base.
Propaganda over the years, The PPP got you vote. The PPP are telling you to vote for your race is bad while they are voting for the race, that thing. And we fall for it. There are a whole lot of people in the Black community, intellectuals, fall for it. Why you can't vote for your race if you want to? There's not racism. Yeah. Racism, if you use or you try to utilize the position in your race as a thing against others, you're not calling others, saying they mustn't have equality. The United Nations allow that. The minority thing in the United Nations say you have a right to your own organization.
That's right, self-determination. Thank you very much, my brother. I'll see you in a couple of weeks.
See you there. Good.
Dr. Henry Jeffrey, always fresh. I know a lot of you have been waiting to hear Dr. Jeffrey's take on the elections, and you heard some of it here tonight. His argument that whispering campaign, I really am amazed at some of the people who were supporters of the APN. I'm not talking about people on the ground, I'm talking about leaders, what Henry Jeffrey is calling the old guard in the PNC, but also those who weren't in the PNC itself. When I heard some of the names that were quietly supporting Win on the ground, I almost died. I almost died. And it's interesting that Jeffrey, because I had been playing around in my mind how to bring that into the public domain. Of course, I won't call people names, but to bring that into the public domain. And here is Jeffrey really saying it tonight. And I remember when Jeffrey raised the question of why the Village Voice is supporting Win. What I didn't know is that the Village Voice never carried the column. You know, I don't know. I don't know what was the Village Voice official policy. I used to be part of the inner workings of that news entity. I'm no longer part of the inner workings of that entity. But you're hearing these whispers, and Jeffrey has said it here tonight, that he wrote a column to that effect, and it was never carried by the Village Voice, and so on. No, I am not making an accusation against the Village Voice. All I'm saying is that when I heard some of the African Guyanese leaders, both inside the PNC and outside of the PNC, that took the anti-Norton thing to another level by quietly and not so quietly supporting winning the ground and whispering to people. I mean, I ordered this past week and I was flabbergasted. And that is why I refuse to go after the voters who voted for Win. I refuse to. Nobody's going to get me to do that, right? I think they made rational decisions, but there are unintended consequences to rational decisions sometimes. And I think there are unintended consequences. They're telling me here, the young people in my village, A-Box, and are telling me that times money are running. Money are running. We thought the money would start running. Money are running. And these are people who are telling me they voted for Win. Money are running. They're calling me the MP. They're very clear about that, you know, and they're coming up, you know. 16-year-old girl saw me at the funeral there on Sunday, 16 years old. And she came up to me and she said, "You are one, are you one, aren't you one of the MPs?" And I said, "Yes." I said, "You live in Buxton?" I said, "Yes." She said, "I'm so glad that a Buxtonian is going to Parliament and so forth." And then she asked me, "Why so many young people voted for Win?" And I told her that, you know, I'm going to give you a 2-minute answer, but the answer is more than 2 minutes, right? And this was at the back of the village, and Win got quite a few votes, a lot of the votes from the young people at the back of the village. And I was down there for a couple of days, chatting with them and so on, in a relaxed environment. And they were open with me, like I said, because I'm a villager. They know me. And they were quite open with me as to why. And you talk to 10 of them, and you'll probably get 5 reasons. When you finish, you'll get 5 reasons. So it's not a singular thing. You know, and some of them are saying, you know, Dr. Hines, it was not about you. We don't vote against you. You know, so the thing is very much complex. That is why I'm saying that we have to take our time and so on. And I refuse to get into those young people's faces. I know the frustrations of those of us who are APNU and work our butts off, and those 77,000 who voted for us, which include quite a lot of young people. And I can understand the frustration. One of my friends in Boxing Up to this morning, we were hanging out, and he was abusing me, you know, because he was saying that, look, you know, Dr. Hines, you move around the village, and, you know, anybody asks you for something, you whether they're young or old or so on, you make sure that the thing, and some of them are Win. And you know, it was one of those mornings of frustration, and he abused me up and things. The next day, you're going to tell me, I'm sure tomorrow, if we meet up, you're going to say, "Boy, we can't give up this thing." So I know the emotions that came with what happened on September 4th. But as I am arguing, I don't believe that there was anything fundamental that drove those mainly young people, but to vote for Win. And I think that we can regroup the community. People are saying you must regroup the party, and you mean in the PNC. And I don't have a problem with that, but I think what needs to be regrouped is our community. And I think we have to recognize that and deal with it as a matter of urgency. I think it's clear to our young people that, contrary to what they may have thought, the Indian young people and the Indian community remain firm. Remain firm. And secondly, the fact that they thought their vote for win would have removed the PPP, it didn't happen. And I think there is a lot of introspection that is going on. Young people have their way of doing things. I teach them. I've taught young people for 30 odd years. And so I have a sense of the way in which they do their self-analysis, you know, and so forth. We have to continue to do the work, and we make them uncomfortable. You know, on one program last night, they took me to task because I said the PPP, the same thing Jeffrey said tonight, that the PPP didn't win this election. They got the same number of votes, 9,000 votes, which is one seat. They happen to get 3 extra seats because of the low voter turnout on our side. So mathematically, they got more than they deserve. Mathematically. But really, in real political terms, in a rigged election, you know? And as we said, the rigging wasn't on election day where somebody voted 40 times. And so it's who voted 40 times before the election and who on election day impersonated voters. But you can't know that by, you know, going through, you know, what happened on the day. So the system is rigged. And so we have to continue speaking on these issues and to really speak to our young people. Really speak to our young people. And I have begun to do that. You know, we don't have to wait until Parliament is called because this work has to be done. And like I said, the young people at the back of my village, they were quite candid with me. They're mostly males. They were quite candid, but they were females too. They were quite candid with me, you know. And the nuance of what they're saying is why we have to not throw away the baby with the bathwater. All right? So I want us to continue to stay put. We are, that course, Pan-Africanism, some of you have already contacted me. I am going to give you all the information tomorrow, where to call and where to register for the course. And we are going to start there. And as I said, the request came from first of all, Pastor, who approached me before the election and said he wanted me to do a course with him. And then now these young people, as a result of that interview I did, asked me to help them in trying to understand. So we are moving. Sometimes things fall into place. As I said, I was reluctant to do the interview because I didn't want to offend the young people. I understand that there are some young Africans in particular, who, you know, think that, you know, if you can play ball with the PPP, you know, that is a form of independence. And I understand where their head is. But I also know that they're doing so without institutional knowledge, as my friend Turkey liked to say, without an institutional knowledge of race relations in Guyana and how race operates. You know, that when you have that ballot in your hand, yes, it's your individual ballot, and you're expected to vote your conscience. But you are also part of a larger collective, whether it's your community, your ethnicity. That vote then has multiple utility. It's not just your own personal vote. It's also a vote for the collective, what we call in Black studies the linked faith, F-A-I-T-H-E, F-A-I-T-H, sorry, and F-A-T-E. That in many regards, as Indians, as Amerindians, as Africans, in an environment of ethnic contestation, what has always gotten us over is the link faith. Our faith is linked. Our faith is linked. You know, as I explained in that program, before I wake up in the morning, I'm a victim of racism because some girl, some boy, somewhere is being denied an opportunity. A lady came to see me this morning. She said she has a daughter who applied to join the immigration department. She did everything, application. She got 8 or 9 subjects or something. She did all the tests that they needed to do. She did the physical, 2 years, and nobody has gotten back to her. 2 years. And she came with tears in her eyes because, you know, she said, can you now as an MP raise this with her daughter? Or granddaughter. And so many of those stories. Young lady came to see me. She's a university student, 3rd year university student. And she has applied all over, in all the ministry. She has applied to the teaching, the Ministry of Education to teach. 3rd year student at the University of Guyana. And when she got a reply, they're telling her she's overqualified. And I'm saying that if you're seeing a pattern of this in one community, where young people are not given opportunities, that's where the racism is, because, you know, you can tell by a name. 99% of the time you can look at the name or look at the community the person comes from. And nobody is seeing that is the institutional racism. And I'm just telling you about 2 cases in one day in one little community. If I were to go from community to community over a period of time, that will accumulate. You know? So there is this institutional racism. They tell us about equal opportunity. I know equal opportunity. First of all, you have to have equality of condition. If you're giving out contracts and some people have the wherewithal to bid for big contracts and other people don't, because there's no equality of condition. In one ethnic group, you have the capital, you have the machinery, you have the network, and in another community, you don't have the capital, you don't have the network. So there's no equality of condition. If your condition is not equal, then the opportunity is not equal, because the one with the better condition gets to take advantage of the opportunity. So before you can have equality of opportunity, you have to have equality of condition. And then we can talk about equality of outcome. Or we can say if you don't have equality of outcome, then something is wrong along the way. But we don't have equality of condition. And even when we have equality of condition, the structures, because somebody had to know somebody in order to say, but this is my cousin, this is me thing, me whoever, this person's from a village. You know, take a look at your application. And I intend to pursue these complaints that I'm getting. It's one of the things I want to use part of my parliamentary thing to do, to make representation on the people and to ask. I am going to ask the commissioner about this young lady case here that applied for 2 years. If she's not fit for the job, at least write and tell her. You see? So a lot of these things are happening. And we don't get a chance to pursue them because a lot of time people don't tell you. Sometimes people are ashamed to tell you. That lady came in early this morning, knocked me up, and said, David, I want you to see about this thing for my granddaughter. And I'm sure there are so many cases. That's why I said before I wake up in the morning, some young African is being discriminated against. Some young African doesn't get a job, doesn't get into a university because of their skin color and assumptions that are made of that skin color. Some young African is shut down by the street, shut down on the street by the police because of assumptions that the police make about young black men and young black women. Some young African woman and not so young African woman is being taken advantage of by men, murdered, because women are deemed to be defenseless, but African women often don't have anywhere to turn. All women are vulnerable in this society, but the African woman is vulnerable both as woman and as African and as poor being part of the poor and the powerless. And so we have this thing compounded in our community. And the system, how many times we hear women say, they call the police, they ain't get care for come, they ain't get patrol, they ain't get this. Or the women, they go and complain and they tell them to make a deal. And next thing you know, the woman got killed. So there are all these structural things that are militating against poor people, against women and children, and against the darker or the darkest among us, meaning African Guyanese. And I intend to spend a lot of my energies fighting back against those things and to use the bully pulpit of Parliament to draw attention to these things. I will not rest. I will not rest. I will not rest. So, sisters and brothers, yes, we feel hurt by what some people say our own children have done to us. But we press on. We press on. And we're not going to stop. They're killing me, how I label people lick bottom and the scar going to be on them for the rest of their life and so on. I am very clear about who falls into that category. As I said, your mother can't give birth to you, wash you, bathe you, scrub out your ears, take out boo-boo from your eyes, scrub your teeth, send you to school, feed you. And then when you get to a point, you left your mama house, and as soon as you go in your own house, or whichever house you're going in, your mother-in-law house or wherever, and all of a sudden you discover love in one day, and you say, your mama who send you to school, who take care of you, feed you, house you, love you, your mother not capable of love, but now you're going in your mother-in-law house, you find love in one day? What is that? I'm sure there is love in your mother-in-law house. But to then deny that there's love in your own house is what is the height of self-hate, or what we popularly call the lick bottom. It's the height of it. You are essentializing black people to say we are not capable of love. You mother, because it's the black community that give birth to you. And you sit there at the highest level, they put a crown on your head, call you MP, call you this. And you left your mama house You garner your mother in the house, and your woman get love. That is the essentializing of the African. And I'm not going to stand for that nonsense. I'm not going to stand for it. And no matter how they try to conflate how I cussing people who left the PNC, I'm not interested in that. Having left, you know, I saying that house, that community, my mother, that community give those people who said that no, go on over and get along, they give them more than they give me. They get more than most of us. And that is what I am after. I'm not after who want to join what they want to join. That's your personal business. But having joined, you then essentialize. It's not racism. What you are doing is that you're spouting the racism of others. Spouting the racism of others. And that's the problem you're dealing with, this small group. Small group. They're not a large group. They're a small group. But given where they're perched on the social structure, because for the most part, you know, they are bright people, they are professionals, and so on, they can have an effect on the rest of the community. And so when we label them that, is ready to separate the sheep from the goat. And as I said, those people remain my brothers and my sisters, you know. And David Hines don't like black people in the PPP. I never hear Robeson Ben grovel and behave like a LB. He doesn't have to. He doesn't have to. When I talk about LB, I know who they are, and you all know who they are, and they know themselves. And it has always been a phenomenon in our community, in this time in Guyana. If I were the PPP, I would ask them, what you all bring? What did you all really bring me thing? But the PPP knows very well. They just need them to help to do the undermining. When the dust is settled and the positions are thing. One named Ruel Johnson, he writes all kind of nonsense about me. Whenever he is wrong, I would contact him privately and tell him he's wrong. And I'm not going to get into any public spat with Ruel Johnson for a couple of reasons. One, when they fired me and Lincoln Lewis from the Chronicle, Ruel Johnson was one of those who resigned in protest. I noticed he recently said that when the Kaieteur News fired me and Lincoln, he advised them to do it. So he has a mixed record, but he stood up for people like me at one time, and I'm always grateful to people who stick their neck out for me and for us. So I'm not going to get into any public spat with Ruel. That's one of the reasons, because he stood up for me. And second, with all due respect, I have absolutely nothing to gain from a public spat with Ruel. Ruel probably got more to gain from a public spat with me. And forgive me if I sound a little bit elitist here. I have nothing to gain from a public spat with Ruel. Ruel has more to gain from a public spat with me. You know, I don't mean to be elitist. So that's the second reason I wouldn't get into Ruel. But when Ruel moved to the point and say that I support rigged election in 2020, he's treading on grounds that may get him in trouble with me. I am very slow on these things. Very slow. All the lies that have been told in me, I think Kidaki usually tell me, don't tell you nothing. Guys tell me, don't tell me nothing. Because all the lie they're telling to you, and you're supposed to go and sue this so and so, you don't do it because you feel that you shouldn't do something like that. But I'm warning Roel. I'm not going to get into any spot with you, Roel. I'm not going to get into any public spot with you. And I'm grateful that you stood up and defended me at one point. I'll never forget that. But when you move to say that I am a rigger of elections in this kind of atmosphere, you're going a little bit too far. You're going a little bit too far. And I'm watching you. You also suggested in that post that I may have worked for the social Ministry of Social Cohesion without doing any work, because from 2018, you didn't have the thing to you can call me or inbox me and say, Dr. Hines, what year did you work on social cohesion? But no, you went out there and wallowing your pen. And I'm just warning you, you could be getting in some trouble with me if you continue along that line. All right? So, and as I've warned Freddie Kissoon over and over again, I've not made a move on Freddie Kissoon, partly because of the old history that we have had, and regardless of how he's cruel to me, I think I am much more humane. Freddie has a problem. He went on his program last night. Could you believe? And I think he said in his column, David Hines said Black people voted for a second Black party. Freddie's either dunce or he pretends to be a dunce. Because he would know that I said, by voting for Win, in effect, what Black people have done is created a second Black party. That is different from me saying Black people vote for a second Black party. Freddie can't be that dunce. But I think he's playing dunce willfully. And those are the kinds of things he'll get into trouble with me for. I don't mind people cussing me, but do it accurately. Sister Rhonda Lane made a statement about Indians who came to Guyana. And some of the Indians in the PPP put out a statement condemning her. Geeta Chandan was not part of that group. Geeta Chandan criticized Takuma Ogunse, and I call her a slave catcher because I say, you are on our team. The other side is shackling a man, and you are condemning that man. You're a slave catcher. Freddie Kissoon for years say Rhonda made a statement, and David Hines called Geeta criticized Rhonda, and I call Geeta a slave catcher. Geeta went on Freddie's program and said, Mr. Kissoon, I did not sign a statement. That is not why David Hines called me a slave catcher. Having said that, he continues to repeat it, continues to lie. And like I said, Freddie has been a comrade, and I value those things. Even when we part company and you go to another part, I value those things. I'm a human being. I come from a culture that is forgiving. And like I said, I will always remember that Freddie stood up with us Black people at one point. I always say, Ubrat Narain, whatever he cussed me and say about me, he lay down in front of the hospital for Black people. And so I remember those things. You don't go from being a good friend to being a total enemy. Not for me. We can part company as individuals, but I still remember the good things you did. Same thing with Brother James Bond. I noticed he called me a hypocrite because he said that I call other people lick bottom, but I ain't called Tabitha Sarbo Ali a lick bottom. And somebody had to tell him that Tabitha never went on any platform and put down black people and use other people's racist stereotypes against black people. So she's not a lick bottom. And he said that I'm a hypocrite. Again, I give James a pass. I give James a pass. All right? But if people are going to go to the point of libel, and they do it over and over again, as Ruel is now gone, he's now venturing into, I may have to think differently. I may have to think differently. I have nothing against these people personally. I have political differences with them. As I said, I never got into a spot with Ruel. Never. Never. He has said things that have been inaccurate, and I have gotten in touch with him privately and correct some of his inaccuracies. But when you move to the point of saying that I support re-election, you maybe have to go to the court to prove that. All right. So I've already made clear where we stand in relation to those people, and they can continue. They can continue, like, Ruel has a fine mind. He's not a dummy. He's not a dummy. But one of the problems is when you take something which is beautiful and use it for ugly things, that's when you get in trouble. He has a beautiful mind, Ruel, one of the best writers we have. But when you're taking your God-given skills, the beauty that God gives you, in pursuit of ugliness, you end up where these brothers are ending up. That's the thing with them. I watch my brother Leno Craig sits down there and he knows Freddie is talking nonsense all it, and he doesn't say, Freddie, man, don't do that. Don't do that, Freddie. Gita come here and she said she didn't sign a statement, so Dr. Hines didn't call her a slave catcher. And he sits there and he's silent on it, knowing that Freddie is destroying people's reputation and doesn't have the courage to say to Freddie, no man, don't do that. And so that's what I'm saying. These are people with fine minds, but in pursuit of ugliness. Some of them are aware of the ugliness. Some of them may not be aware of the ugliness. But that's the tangle you get into. That's the tangle you get into. All right, we're going to be back tomorrow. Same time, same place. GHK Lal is here tomorrow. GHK Lal is here tomorrow, and you're going to get all the information that you all need to enroll for our first course, An Introduction to Pan-Africanism. Tomorrow night, we are going to be back. Yes, GHK Lal is on tomorrow. See you all then.